Hey everybody, it's Anne coming to you live from my house. This is going to be a stream from home week, since because reasons, right? Hey Nomad Zeke, hi Robin, Margaret, hi, I saw you in there. Sharky, nice to see you. I'm going to be doing home stream all this week, and this is my last week of streaming before I move. So I will be here Monday through Thursday, and we're going to do both streams from my place on Wednesday. So we'll be doing that, and then there's going to be an interruption in service, right, Justin?
Yeah, about 2 weeks or so, right?
Yeah, because I
Ish.
need to finish packing up my house, which means I've got to break down my streaming setup. And I'll be living with Katie, our employee from Reaper, and in that time, she doesn't have good enough internet to stream, and it's only a few days at that point. So then I have to drive to California, and then I have to set up my stuff in California. So essentially, yes, we are broadcasting from isolation until this blight is purged from the land. Yes, yes, yes. So I'll probably resume streaming on Monday the 13th. So you guys will have a couple weeks without me. I don't know if Justin wants to run reruns, or if you guys, or if you've found a sucker to do a morning show for a week and a half, Justin.
I'll probably do reruns because we have so many at this point.
Yeah, we got quite the archive. Yeah, we could do some stuff from earlier.
Because as we a realistic conversation about this, because at some point we're gonna have to talk about it.
Yeah.
The county next hours issued a shelter in place, right? Dallas.
Right.
And in the possibility, and it's fairly strong. It's likely. It's not like it's impossible. That our county, or even the county that I actually live in, which isn't the county that we work in, those counties will all likely receive shelter in places sometime at some point. I highly doubt that they just don't. And in that circumstance, we will be 100% from home,
Yeah.
which could cause a little bit of interruption with when we stream and getting some, because I have to, I'm fastly and as fast as I can, really working on basically some ways to get Ron and Ed on the show
Right.
without
Well, does Ed have decent internet? Like, can we stream?
he has decent, Ron has decent. They're not great, but all I need from them is a video feed and an audio feed, essentially.
Yeah. So,
The
hey
rest of it
everybody.
I'll be doing from home. So in fact, I have positive news that there's a decent chance that we end up still being able to do marbles like normal.
Oh my God!
Based on
What?
setting up. I know.
Yes, indeedy. All right, cool.
So
Yeah. It's not tiffling skin. It's untiffling tiffling, or not tiffling. I don't know. Non-tiffling tiffling. All right. It's NTT. Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
That. Although I'm actually using a demon for it, so I'm not even using one of our Hellborn models. I'm using a demon. So, but yeah, good morning everybody. Good morning. Yeah, Judge Spud, awesome. I'm glad you like the channel. Stick around. Fantastic. So that's our dealio. So for those just coming in, we're going to have a cessation of service. I'm going to be streaming this week as normal, but then I have to take the following pretty much 2 weeks to pack up my house and move to California, drive to California, because I have to drive Kiri out there. So that's going to be a bit. And then I've got to recombobulate once I'm out there, and set up my streaming stuff. And you probably will see a test stream probably that weekend, of the 11th and 12th. Like Justin and I will probably do just a short little tiny little like 10 minutes to check in and see if we can make it work, and to fine tune stuff. So if you see a weird little broadcast in there, that's us essentially setting stuff up.
Correct. Yeah. Also, Hey Jacob, how you doing? And thank you guys for the reassurance that my voice sounds better, because I would hate for my voice to sound any different.
Well, you definitely sound like you've improved and gotten over your cold that you had.
My cough is completely gone. So
Yay!
yeah, it's and I'm actually allowed to return to work today.
What? So yeah, I'm going to California. It's not the best time to go to California, but I love my man, and so I'm moving. And he needs me out there, because he's really getting anxious about the whole coronavirus thing, and so I actually may move a couple days earlier than I was going to. So we both have elderly parents. We're both really worried about them. We just want to get this stressful move part out of the way. I don't really mind. I mean, we're going to have a shelter in place in Denton probably before long. They've got a shelter in place out there. He says people have been really good. He says actually their local Trader Joe's store has actually been making people queue up outside and then only letting a few people into the store at a time. So they've actually been enforcing social distancing and stuff at some of the bigger stores, the grocery stores, which is really nice. So yeah, moving, actually, Sharky, not so bad this time because I actually hired real movers. So all I need to do is box stuff up. So that's still a lot of work because I'm trying to go through and throw out a bunch of stuff and give away a bunch of stuff, right? Because I don't want to move everything. So yeah, at least I have real movers. They will come and get my stuff and make it go out there. And I just called them the other day and they haven't had any problems so far in America. Really only having problems with people who wanted to move international, obviously because there's so many bans on travel. But
actually,
yeah.
Robin, that's what they did in Dallas County for us. Is the only thing open is basically food places, both
pharmacies,
yeah.
Like car repair places that people, they need to have access to resume their lives.
Correct. Like, as they put it, essential, right?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so that's where we are. So expect me to disappear and to see a lot of reruns. But hey, for those of you who came in late, maybe Justin will start with the earliest episodes and play forward so you get to see some of the early stuff I did. And then I will be back live from remote distancing.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun actually. Kind of coming up with I'm gonna come up with like a hits playlist.
Yeah, all right.
Reruns of it. Yeah,
there we go. It'll be yeah. We should do fun. And if you felt like it, you could even voice over a little. But yeah. So that's cool. Yay! Hey, Jacob. Yeah. So yeah, it's the same in New York. Yeah, pretty much. Everything is locking down. I'm trying to just get all this shit stuff taken care of so I can move safely and be in my new place with my guy. So yeah. All right. Well, let's without further ado talk about devilish skin tones. We're feeling devilish this morning. Tomorrow we'll probably be shading with complementary colors, and then Wednesday is going to be all dragon all the time because I got to get those dragons done. So we'll see. I've been working on them a little in my home time, along with other stuff I wanted to get done for Ron. They're sitting above me, that's why I'm looking up. But yeah, the Dragonstone shares got to get done this week. So pretty much Wednesday and Thursday, if I'm not done with it by Wednesday, we will do Dragonstone share. So yeah, get ready for draconic last 2 days, I guess. So yeah. All right. No, I am not a professional. Well, okay. I take money for this. I am a professional, but I'm not. I'm a non-professional professional. I'm NPP. All right. Here we go. Let's see. Make sure that I've turned off my intro so that we do not get the paint splorch. And off we go. Camera. Beanie cam. All right. Let me see here. I need to turn on a light. There we go. Much better. So, all right. So I sculpted a bikini on this model, which is what the green is. Because in order for her to go on the show, she needed to be adjusted, since she's normally naked. She is a great sculpt. She's Verena, female demon. She's a Werner sculpt, Werner clock. So I've always really liked this piece. And we're just going to use her. She's a great model for demonic skin tones, for Hellborn or whatever you're going to do. And what I like to do with Succubi and Hellborn and anything that's partially human and still demonic, is that I like to introduce a lot of red tone into the skin. And you don't have to go bright red with it. You certainly can. Plenty of people have painted succubus with bright red skin. I don't like that sort of thing. I actually go with the redstone triad usually, but I'm going to work in some Amadeus red also today, which is a good demonic skin tone. I'm guessing it's going to warm up these guys a lot. So this is what we got. Let me get my, where is my mixing brush? I needed my mixing brush. Oh no, did the mixing brush run away and get lost? Oh, there it is. It's hiding. All right. Yay. And then actually, when I am doing a humanoid demon, I do mix in some actual human skin tone. So this is 9044 tan skin, which I always tell people is one of the most versatile skin tones we make. And it is wonderful to mix into the redstone triad for highlights. As far as somebody asked about bluish skin tones, I don't know, maybe I will do a pro tips on that. I have a request on really colorful skin tones and weird skin tones for my Patreon too, so I may do one on there. But blue skin really, I mean, for mermaids, I guess, is like sea creatures would be the best thing to use a blue skin tone on. But I mean, really, guys, when it comes down to non-human, like colorful skin tones, you just shade and highlight it like anything. And if you're going to try to make it more human, then there's specific tactics to use that aren't that difficult. So, but anyway, we shall see here. I've got this is Redstone Highlight. I like to use it as a base coat because it is, as you can see, it's kind of close to a regular skin tone. It's just like a sunburned almost, but not quite as pink. It's a reddish regular skin tone. Now, you can also use this if you're trying to do weathered skin on like a Viking or a warrior, barbarian, or somebody who spends a lot of time outside. You could start with this as your skin tone and then just highlight up with tan skin. Just leave a little bit of this here and there. And what it'll do is it'll get you that kind of a weathered look, like somebody who's been out in the wind and sun a lot. Yeah, thanks for my very super fast bikini sculpt. I had fun. But yeah. And you're awake, Silverthorn? What? That's not possible. I'm not even awake. But yeah. So hi, Painting Dog. And let's see here. I'm gonna grab. Wanted to just get a little bit of a better skin tone. Now we're waiting for that to dry. So there are two ways I could introduce red to this. If I wanted a redder skin tone, I could essentially mix it into my shadows. So like this is redstone up here. This is what I would normally do, and I might take some Amadeus red and kind of mix it in there to give it even more of a red tone. So a couple brushfuls of that will really darken and make that a lot redder. But the thing is with skin that I usually do start dark and work light. So in this case, since that's usually the way I work, and I already started with redstone highlight, I will probably highlight with tan skin or a mixture of these. And then I will glaze with this to give everything a reddish cast if I decide I want it to look more demonic and less human. And so you could go either way with this. You can definitely go more human or you can go more demonic. And it's up to you whether you want things to look a little bit more human or a little less human. It's certainly valid to do succubus in human skin tones since they're trying to mimic humans most of the time. So that's doable. Now, with skin tones, you're definitely layering. So, so for this, I'm kind of testing and seeing if my paint is thin enough. For smooth skin tones, layering is probably the best technique. Unless you've got a big model, then you can wet blend. You can kind of wet blend a bit on this too. I'm testing this to see how I can see my brush strokes. Like, I don't want to be able to see them, but I can still see them right now. So I'm like, all right. So I'm going to have to play with that. This paint right now, I'm going to say is about, I'm going to guess that it's about 2-to-1 paint to water. So I probably need to go to 1-to-1, which is going to involve going in for another 4 drops. In general, layering is going to start around a 1-to-1 and glazing around a 2-to-1 water to paint. But everything will be different. Hey, thanks for the sub, Planer. Mark it down, Justin.
Thank you, Planer.
Hey, Taz. It's not bad to be focused on work, Taz. You don't have to slack all the time. You just have to slack enough so that, we make sure that you're still a time-honored member of our community of slackers who watch and paint while at work. Isn't that the name of our community? I thought it was. So, all right. So for wet blending, I would just lay down that first color and then I would mix in my tan skin and I would just kind of fudge it around and make it blend. But if I decided I did not want to do much wet blending, then I would layer. So let's see. Let's see here. Roll for initiative. Yes, not only a mini painting channel, but I am Anne and I am Reaper Miniatures staff painter and the person who created Reaper's paint lines. So you roll for initiative, you have found the mega miniature painting channel. I've been painting since I was 9 and I am in my 40s now. So that gives you an idea of how long I've been painting. So today we're talking about demonic skin tones, and especially like for succubus and stuff. If you don't want to paint them like humans and you don't want to paint them strictly like demons, I'm using some reddish browns highlighted with skin tones to try to give them more of a demonic feel without going straight demon or straight human. So actually, let me put my paints down here, guys, so you can see what I'm using.
Thank you for the sub, Cooves.
Yay, Coobs! Thanks for the sub. We're already, I think that makes us over halfway toward our next AMA, right? Justin?
Yeah, I think that puts us at 16. I'll check my number.
Yeah, I believe that you are correct. That is the mental count that I was keeping. So the colors that I'm using here, and you can see them down below, are Asmodeus Red from our Pathfinder paint line, Redstone from the core, Redstone Highlight from the core set of MSP, and then Tan Skin 9044 also from the core set of MSP. So yeah, just looking at everybody. Okay, I'm caught up on the chat. We're good. So, all right. So layering, guys. On a miniature, you really don't have to be, on a 28 mil, you don't really have to be precise with your highlights. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh my god, layering, how would you do layering on a tiny little face like that? The answer is you really don't need to be very good about your blending on a tiny face. There's such a small surface available here that I could just really spot highlight and it would still look pretty good. I still do work with thinned paint for it because it will make it appear to blend better. Oh, I should plug my Patreon since the Darth Abacus bot nicely just plugged it. I do have a Patreon. I actually just put out a PDF I'm super excited about just like a couple days ago, which is it's about choosing colors for your model. It's about different types of color schemes. So it's actually, it starts with basic and it gets pretty advanced, but it draws on and relates to an earlier PDF that I did about color schemes. That is a little bit more simple. So essentially it's building on past content. But it's super fantastic. I talk about not only complementary and like primary and secondary triad color schemes, but I talk about split complementaries. I talk about analogous color schemes. Oh my gosh, guys, it's so cool. So anyway, if you want to try out or look at my Patreon, it is patreon.com/paintingbig. And the Patreon is about to become my main source of income. So I am jazzed for all of you who subbed. Thank you. Thank you for supporting me. So, all right. Everybody's cool. There we are. Super. So, all right. I tried to put a layer of skin on here, and it's coming off a little bit streaky. Now, when you see that happen, and some people also will call that chalkiness, what it means is that you have over-thinned your paint. So, I'm going to put 1 drop back of tan skin. And not all paints will get chalky. Paints with higher pigment counts tend to resist chalkiness, which is why I use for highlighting I tend to use pure white, which is our highest pigmented white. But I can add a little bit more in. Now, what this means is if I can't thin down the paint extremely because of possible chalkiness, then what I need to do is I need to mix an intermediate color between these two. Because you can see these two colors are quite different. When you're trying to layer and blend, if your colors are very different, you usually want to thin a lot more on your highlight color. But if you make your colors closer together, you can get away with thicker paint and still get smooth blends. So since I don't want to thin this paint very much, I want to actually make a 50-50 mix. So let's grab a couple of brushfuls of our Redstone Highlight and a couple of brushfuls of our tan skin. Our tan skin is pretty thin, so we might need to add an extra brushful or two of tan skin, because it's thinned more than the Redstone Highlight. I want something that's halfway between these colors so that I can get away with layering with thicker paint without being too far from one or too far from the other. Let me see here. That's getting closer. Yeah, since my tan skin is so very thin, it's really... And there's a lot of red in Redstone Highlight, so it's resisting. I'm going to actually add 1 full drop, like unthinned drop of... tan skin. Usually a 50-50 mix would work, but you kind of eyeball it. Try to get something that's like midway between these two. Because you do want it different enough from the redstone so that you can see your highlights. That's looking a little bit better. And I might actually just put a brush full of that into that. There we go. So it's not quite tan skin anymore, but it'll work. So that's another tip with layering. I talk about this a lot. If you're going to do blending, mixing a little bit of your color into your next color makes them harmonize better. So mixing a bit of this into that, mixing a bit of that into this, and then for my next highlight, I'm going to use this and probably add white. Things like that. So, all right. Let's see how this does. It should be about the right consistency. So for the top of the thigh, I'm going to use kind of an upstroke. But since this is a long area, I want my blending stroke to usually actually be against the grain. You want to go perpendicular to the shape of the area that you're trying to highlight. And the reason for this is if you use a vertical brushstroke on an up and down area like this, your brushstroke's going to be super easy to see. It's going to pop out. It's not going to blend at all. But if you go counter to the shape of the area and do a horizontal stroke on a long surface like this, it actually will blend better. The eye will not pick up the brushstroke nearly as readily. So that is why I do it this way. I got away with a vertical stroke up here because this is a broader area, so I could go that way. The other thing to remember is when you are layering with a highlight color to start your brushstroke in the shadow and pull back toward where you want that color to be deposited. Because when you put your brush down and then pull back and lift up, you're going to leave a little puddle of that highlight color right where your brush leaves the mini. And that's what creates the blended effect. That is what layering is all about. And I'm going to go fairly deep into the shadows on this one for this leg. Let's see here. Got everything. Yeah, you need to paint Cooves. We've got more time to do it now. Yay! Yes, good morning, everybody. Good morning, peoples. We'll get a little bit more into this, and then I'm going to talk again about our upcoming schedule now that we have more people in the channel. Since I am about to move to California, deeper into the plague zone, and will thus need to have a cessation of service for a little bit while I am actually packing up my house and moving. So I am going back in with this highlight color. I usually will build up a couple of layers of my highlight color just to make sure I have a nice solid highlight on the front of this leg. And you can see that it's pretty subtle. I mean, if you compare the one leg to the other, you can see the difference, but it's not like hugely different so far. And that's what you want because your painting time is still pretty low. But that's too bad, Nomad Zeke, but at least you still have work. I know a lot of people don't, so it's all right. So you want this to be subtle. You want the difference here to be subtle. You want to be able to see it, but not see it extremely. The mistake a lot of people make with layering is that they go too fast and they expect a huge result too quickly. In reality, layering is a very slow technique, but what it gives you is absolute control over how your shading and highlights turn out. It's a very control-heavy technique. So for small miniatures, it's just a really good technique to learn because you want tight details. You've got such tiny details to pick out here that you do actually want very good control over where exactly your highlights and shadows fall. So now I'm going to bring in my tan skin with a little bit of this mixture in it. I'm going to hit the knee. I'm going to start concentrating now on the parts of the model that would get the most highlight. So I'm going to do mostly toward the top of the thigh. I'm going to shrink my highlight a little bit. I don't want to cover over all of my previous highlight or I'll lose my blend. Think about a topographical map where every elevation bit is a little bit smaller than the one before it because it's building up to being a mountain or a hill. And you are essentially building hills of paint.
Thanks for the sub, Monaho.
Yay, subs. So now we're well on toward our next AMA. You guys can see my last AMA session on Thursday, this past Thursday. It should be up on YouTube at this point. So next highlight goes up there. Now this, since I'm going more in the direction of tan skin, this introduces a much more human skin tone to our tiefling, or sorry, our whatever we're doing, our demon. She's not a tiefling, technically. She is a demoness, Verena Demoness. She is 77067. So I'm going to build that up just a little bit more. I want it more toward the top of the thigh. I want a strong highlight where the light is hitting, where her leg is coming out. And if you can see layers, don't fret. We can always glaze. Layering and glazing go hand in hand. Like they were made for each other. These two techniques were made to be used together. A lot of people use layering or glazing for other things now, but originally layering and glazing were really mentioned in the same sentence. All right, so we've got a nice thigh there. Let's do the other one. And let's go back over to her face too. So let's see. Just checking. Demon lady. Yep. Good generic catch-all. Exactly. She is technically a demon, although she could be used as a succubus. Or if you gave her a bikini, as I did, you could use her as a Hellborn sorceress. Assuming that your character embraces the concept of the battle bikini. And who knows, maybe that's a cultural thing. Maybe battle bikinis are in. Battle thongs, as I used to call them. But battle bikini has more alliteration. So we'll just highlight that muscle as it comes down there, and then we've got to do it from the other side too. And with layering, you really do want a nice solid base coat under it. You don't want a splotchy or irregular base coat. I got a little splotchy back here because I didn't go over the area with a second coat. And so then I have to futz with it to get my layering to compensate for that. So it's not ideal. So usually aim to have a very nice solid base coat on your model if you're going to layer. Get a little knee. Blend in this a little bit better. I'm going to blend this in, then I'm going to glaze with Asmodeus red to give her a more demonic look. Though I personally like the look of the redstone triad with it. You can... yeah, I just had to put a bikini on. Sure, nice idea. Would love to see. Thanks, Jazz. Yeah, I mean, I did a gnome for faces, I think. And I don't remember if I've done I did do a fine details also with the back of a cloak on a 28 millimeter. I mean, the basic thing with those models is just you need to up the contrast to make everything come out. And also just don't try too hard to try to make every tiny detail blend or anything. Usually spot highlights on some of that small stuff will work. But
yes, initiative. Actually, we reapermini.com. You can find all kinds of paints and minis. And
Yep.
Anne strongly recommends the MSP paint line, mainly because she made it, but also because
yeah,
it's amazing.
yeah, I am
But-
kind of like biased in the extreme because my job at Reaper for the past 15 years has been creating their paint lines. So I'm about to leave to go to California to be with my guy, but because long distance sucks. But Reaper will still have me working for them on streaming and painting fronts. So I'm still keeping my hand in. But yes, reapermini.com. And we are still shipping stuff. Like, we're still open. We're trying to observe as many procedures as we can to keep everybody safe on our staff. And we are also shipping out paints and minis. No problem. So if you can't get anything from Amazon, because it's not essential, just go to reapermini.com and get yourself some minis and some paints.
Also, thank you for the Twitch Prime. Is it Jess?
Yeah. Also, if you are new to the hobby, I strongly recommend picking up our Learn to Paint kits. Learn to Paint kit. The first one is I forget what the actual title of it is. The second one is Layer Up, but the first one is very good basics and how to start out in the hobby. Rhonda Bender wrote it. She's one of our staff painters. She did a fantastic job on it. So I would highly recommend picking that up if you are new. It also will give you kind of a small set of our paints to build on, which is nice. And you can try out our paints and see if you like them. And it's a really good deal too. Like, you get minis and brush and an instruction booklet that's pretty substantial, and paints and a carrying case. And it's you get a great deal on it. We discount it heavily for you. So Learn to Paint kit is an excellent buy. So, all right, quickly doing abs. Ta-da! So I just blocked those in, but since I'm working on such a small surface, note that it doesn't take much for them to look somewhat blended. I tried to keep my brush strokes so that it was to the top of each little muscle mass and the top of the hip there, and my paint is thin enough that you can see that it was stronger where I lifted up my brush. So that's what I mean when it's a small area like a face or a set of abs or something like that on a 28 millimeter model. You don't need to blend perfectly. You're working with such small areas that just the suggestion of a blend with using slightly thinned paint is enough. And just for the record, the most highlight layers, I mean, people, when I was competing in like Golden Demons and stuff, ages 20 years ago, people were like, oh, I put 10 layers of highlighting on a face. And I'm like, that's a waste. The most I ever needed to do, even for a competition model, was 5 layers. I tested it. And that was mostly just like touch and block. It wasn't even, you don't really need to blend when you're working on something this tiny. So it was more just like slowly shrinking my highlights, and then my final highlights just being kind of a dot of highlight on the cheekbone, the nose, the brow, things like that, the chin. You could get a very good gaming result with just 3 highlights. I mean, what I did here is these legs, which actually are turning out really nice, and you can see the crease there and the dark shadow on the interior. This is just 3 colors. There's just 3. Just the red bone, a redstone highlight, the tan skin, and a mixture of both. And that looks actually pretty good. So you could go up higher and make it look even better, but you don't need to, especially not for a gaming model. I mean, how far you go on these things is entirely up to you. So let's go a little bit more complicated, though, and let's put a glaze over this to make these legs look more red. Yeah, I mean, we can talk a little bit about specific paints, Varl, but if you, I mean, I would order them from Reaper, just because we always have the freshest batches of paints. The problem with ordering sets from elsewhere is that you just don't know how long it's been on the shelf, and we can't guarantee it. Although we certainly will honor it if the paint comes up bad or something. We absolutely do replace stuff for you, no matter where it comes from. So, as far as otherwise, if you're overwhelmed by the number of paints, look for paint sets in the store, and that gives you an idea. Kind of. You can also look at a paint line like the Bones paint line and just look at it, the whole thing, and it should list it by item number, and that will give you the colors in order, so you can kind of have a, not be totally overwhelmed because the reds are together, the yellows are together, things like that. So yeah. And if you're just starting with our paint line, I do recommend the Bones paint. It's not just for Bones miniatures, it works on everything. I just, Ed wanted a Bones branded paint line, and we worked it with a little bit higher coverage. But still has really nice bright colors in it. So, alrighty, let's do a glaze. Grab my Amadeus Red, or my Asmodeus Red. Yeah, this model is very, very...
Also, thanks again to everyone who's commenting on how much better I sound and that I'm back. So, we have a great community here.
Alrighty, so here we go. This is about 2 to 1. You can see it's colored water when I'm putting it over my palette. This is a glaze. Glazes are used to blend layers, so if I see any layering texture and I want to blend it in, I could do a glaze with any of my skin tones, or in this case red. The reason I'm using Asmodeus Red, though, is because I want this to be a little bit more demonic. So if I really want her to look more reddish without painting her bright cherry red, like some succubi have been painted, I will do this. I will use a large brush, and I will cover the area as quickly as I can, and then I'm going to essentially dab off any excess because I don't want this to pool. I've added so much water, it's going to break if I let it pool. So let's go over it in one quick swoop and pull off. Use the tip of the brush to wick off excess, and that's going to be where it pools. I can also clean off the brush very quickly, squeeze it out, come back and really pull off any excess then. Like in the belly button. Here where it's up against the bikini line, it's got a little bit of pooling, a little bit between the knees. So that, as you can see, took her skin tone a bit more red. And it's going to dry in a second, and then you can see. Yeah, Yeah, Threads of Fate. Glazes at least 2 to 1. And with lighter paint, you need even more. Glazes, and it's always best to put on a more subtle glaze and then add another layer if you need it, than putting it on too heavy. And when you use a palette like I do, the ceramic palette's good for this. You can see, after you put it over this white area, you can see exactly how much it's going to color the underlying area. So what I did is I did lose a little bit of my highlights. So now I'm going to go back in and get those. But that very subtly, you can see how that made her skin more reddish. It made it a little bit more not human, and that could be what you're looking for. So if you are aiming for a demoness who is a little less human looking, I'm going to add a little tiny bit more water to my paint here. You can also notice, I hope you guys have, porcelain palette. Yeah, I mean, while I work on these things, I don't usually need to add much water to my paint to keep them at the right consistency. And when you're doing layering, this is so important because you don't want to have to adjust your consistency with every brush stroke. So the nice thing about palettes, as long as you've got deep enough paint puddles, you're exposing less surface area to the air, and it'll dry slower, which means that it stays at the consistency you need it for longer. Obviously then, porcelain palettes excel at working with thin paint applications like glazes and layering. Whereas a wet palette is going to be a nice tool for wet blending, especially if you're looking for, if you're mixing a lot of colors and you want to have a very, more painterly style with, more brushstrokes, more texture, more variations in colors as you're mixing them. So it's all about style. I always recommend try both, but understand what each is good at, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, wet palettes are fantastic. And it's like, wet palettes are fantastic for some things, but they make it harder for you to learn some techniques because you don't have a consistent paint consistency. So essentially, always keep in mind that the different palettes and different brushes are good for different things. So it all depends. That's why you should try both and, learn the techniques that are associated with each, and then decide, well, what's my style going to be? What do I like the best for techniques? How do I like to do this? And how do I feel that I get the best results? And make it your decision, your final decision on which you prefer based on that. And you can absolutely use both. I mean, I do whip out the wet palette on occasion, though most of the time I honestly feel like I don't need it, because at this point I'm fast enough to do normal wet blends with the well palette. So we put another layer of highlight on there, and now we have a really nice little reddish, demonish skin tone. Yes, welcome. Yeah, Dino Suchus, it's like, I hate to say it, it's like, it's I don't even consider it like patience at this point. It's I just get in the zone. Like, I honestly just enjoy the process. Like, that's the way you gotta tackle it. If you're impatient and you want fast results, layering's not the way to go. You're right. But just sit down and enjoy painting, and concentrate less on like getting X goal or getting something done. If you sit down and just enjoy the process, your goal can be learning to layer better, instead of getting this model done tonight. Oh my gosh, so. The best thing I can say is I find layering really relaxing. And so using it as we got a little bit thick there. Using it as more of a time to enjoy my hobby instead of a trial or a tribulation is a good attitude to have, I think. In other words, enjoy messing around. I know that a lot of times we get discouraged to do that these days, to mess around and to fail and to not look awesome right out the gate, but there is such a thing as like playing with stuff and learning at the same time. So layering is one of those things. And it is such a good tool to have because it does let you do extremely tight detail and get, really good results in a very small area. Yeah, I mean, all you need to do if you leave paint drying in your well palette is just to put it in the sink in some hot water and spray some 409 or Simple Green or any other normal cleanser into it. Let it soak for like 10 minutes, and then with a green scrubby pad, it should come right out. It just softens it.
Hey, Greek Nikos, thanks for the sub.
Hey, Greek, yay! Yeah, Jay. Yes, exactly. For any artist, new material or medium plus spare time equals time to play. And you don't need much spare time. You could improve your layering measurably by just putting in 15 minutes per night. It's just concentrated. It's actually trying when you get the paint out, instead of just slapping stuff on and doing it the way you always do it. If you want to get better, try new things, spend some time. Understand that it will take a little time, but that the time is fun. And if you manage to pull off some layering that looks good, you're going to feel so good about yourself, right? It's like, oh, awesome, I can do this, right? So it's a good investment. And that's true of any new technique. Non-metallic metal, a lot of people tell me that they're really intimidated by non-metallic metal, for example. And it is difficult because it's a conceptual technique too. You got to learn how to think about stuff instead of just executing. But it's also really rewarding when you nail it. You're like, oh yeah, awesome. Never let fear influence your progress. Just play. Nobody cares. You don't have to show it to anybody if you fail. But if you succeed, you show it to everybody. All right. So there you go. That's kind of how we're looking now. And it definitely, I reddened up the shadows quite a bit, and she's definitely got a nice torso and middle there going. If I wanted to shade more strongly, I usually don't do this. I almost always start dark and work light with a model, and then maybe I'll glaze shadows in. But if I was going to paint in some shadows, let's get my redstone. I think I would actually add a drop of the red to my redstone at this point, since I did glaze for her. So let's add a drop of Amadeus Red. I already put a little bit in there, but I'm going to add even more. That way my shadows are consistent with having glazed with red on parts of this. And shadows are just reverse layering. So you're just dabbing in kind of thinned paint in areas where you want a darker shadow. Another color that's great to shade this sort of demonic skin tone with is purples. Monarch Purple is a good one that I really use a lot of. 9239. I thin that down, and that can shade. Purples are generally good shaders for reds anyway. Alrighty, so then I thinned it down. I'm going to test it a little bit. It's really thin on the palette. I could test it on my fingernail and find out, you know, can I see it? I want to see it, right? So when I'm doing these little lines, I definitely want to see the shadow. So I can see it there, but I don't want to see it very much. I just want to be able to kind of like dab a little bit of extra shadow in here. And a little bit here where if you lost some of your shadow, you can reintroduce it there. Put a little extra over here. We could put a little extra down here, but be careful not to impact your layering. Put a shadow right down the line between the legs to make it come out. Hey, everybody. Yes, yes, yes. Not that kind of dabbing, Reaper John.
John, no dabbing.
Yeah, dabbing is like so last like 5 years ago.
Well, everyone else can dab, but you can't dab, John.
There we go. So just painting in some shadows, just a little bit. Like up here, I would probably shade the eye socket, the entirety of it. I would shade under the nose. Definitely shade the line of the mouth. I would actually line the mouth eventually, but for right now, then I would add a shadow, a strong shadow underneath the jaw. So there are places that you can definitely use a shadow. Usually I would do this after my base coat though. Like since I usually start dark and work light, I would base coat and then I would add in shadows where I wanted them, and then I would start layering everything. Like so. Alrighty, let's see here. Good afternoon, Dragonheart. Alrighty, so that's actually looking pretty good. I think I'll put one more layer of highlight on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tan skin mix here and I'm going to transfer a little bit of it. And this is how I operate a lot, is I'll just transfer a little bit of this color over to a new well, and then I will add like an off-white or something that I feel like using. Any white or off-white will do. Linen white is a great choice. Creamy ivory is a great choice. Bleached linen, pure white, it doesn't matter. If you really don't want to introduce any other pigments, then pure white is a good default, 9039. It does have a big pigment load, so I might need to add a little bit more of my skin color depending on how much this shifts the color. Quite a bit. But yeah, mixing a highlight with tan skin is as easy as adding white. It just works really well. I'm going to add a little bit more tan skin because I had thinned that previous mixture quite a bit, so there isn't a lot of pigment there. Oh no. Ron and Ed double dabbing. No. No. Not on my stream. No. What they do on Reaper Live stays on Reaper Live, John. Alrighty. Let's see here. Purple metallic from Reaper. Got his... Oh, no. If it's a sample bottle, Dragonheart, it is not a color in print. If it was a color available, it would actually have an item number on it. So, essentially, when it says sample, it does not otherwise exist. What happens is that we made a color wrong, and so we had to turn it into something that would be a useful sample. So we do a one-off, and unless it's amazing, we do not save the formula. So that bottle of purple metallic is one of a kind. I have known people to ask on the forums or on Facebook if they get a sample bottle of a particular color to see if anybody else wants to send them their bottle or is willing to part with it for a little cash. So if you really love that purple, you can do that. The other thing you can do is at like ReaperCon, if you come, you can always bring the bottle up to me and say, what is closest to this or how would I mix it? And I'm always willing to do that to help people. But we have, since I was training Sadie to take over the department, since I'm about to move, we did get a lot of samples. And so there are a lot of colors that are going out that really don't exist anywhere else. So yeah, we don't want to throw out paint. So instead we turn it into free samples for you guys when we have an oops. We're just trying to get more of our oopses worked out lately. So I added white to that. I decided it was a little strong, so I actually mixed it with a little bit of that. And now I'm just really just putting a spot of highlight at the top of each, or a line of highlight up here at the top of each area. Just to accent areas that are sticking out. So like I'll put a spot on the top of the knees, just a tiny little couple of brush strokes. I might highlight the top of the thigh here where the light is going to catch it. And the top, because skin does have a sheen to it, because there are natural oils, you can totally take it up toward white. It goes shiny. So yeah. Sadie, samples. Yeah, samples are just odd bugs, right? And a lot of times it's a color that may not necessarily sell well for us too, because a lot of them are muted and have a whole bunch of different pigments in them. But they are fun as one-offs, so... And like I said, if you ever get one and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm running out, Anne, what do I do? You can always bring it to ReaperCon and tackle me and say, hey, Anne, I've got this sample. How do I make more? And I'll give you a best guess. Usually it's not as hard as you think, as long as you're willing to mix a little bit. So now I'm adjusting. I do have a really hard crease muscle line here, and it actually wouldn't be that strong since the light is falling down there. So I'm going to glaze. I'm actually going to mix a glaze out of my initial skin tone. Bring it up a little bit. I think my shadow got it a little bit high. I'm going to put a glaze over that and try to... And this is a light glaze, so I'm going to essentially let it build up. And then I'm going to wick it off. So I put a big puddle of it on there. Now I'm going to take my brush and wick it off from the edge just a little. I want to leave a layer of it so that it minimizes that crease in her leg, but I don't want it to dry funny. So it's kind of a fine dance. When you're glazing with light colors is not for the faint of heart. Glazing with light colors is very difficult, and that's because light colors want to be more opaque. They want to not be thinned that much. So it can be very difficult. It's much easier to glaze with dark or transparent colors like this Amadeus Red. That's decent. That minimized it a little bit. I probably could highlight just a tad and minimize that shadow further. But I won't use my top highlight. I'll use one of my lower steps. There we go. Kind of fuzz it in. And I do this a lot if I'm doing, especially if I'm going to do a competition model, I want it to be perfect. So I'm just going back and forth, trying to make it look awesome. Hey, Jetta. Alrighty, so her torso and her upper legs are looking pretty good. I think I might want a little bit more highlight in those ab muscles, because I've still got a lot of base coat showing through, shadow showing through. And if I decide that the shadows on the abs here are too dark and it's too stark, then I'm going to take my highlight color, make a glaze with it, and put a glaze over that too. Brush it over the whole thing. Let it pool for a second while you rinse out your brush and squeeze it out. Then you can come back with your damp brush and just kind of wick off all the excess. Most of it's going to pool down here near the waistband. There is a little bit more here in the center. I have to dab very gently because I want to take it up, but I don't want to leave brush strokes. And that will lighten the area there. And then if I do decide I've lost a lot of my red, I think that makes more problems than it does solutions to as samples as stream giveaways. I mean, inevitably you're going to get somebody who gets one who doesn't get the whole sample thing and is going to be like, hey, wait, what do you mean I can't buy this paint, you know, normally? We get a lot of that, we were used to, via emails, people being angry that they got a sample that they couldn't reorder. It's like, dude, you got a free paint, do not complain. No, they really aren't set up to do it plainer, because the problem is that, you know, we make them here in this country, and then shipping a bunch of free paint overseas just gets us extra shipping cost and really doesn't, you know, it gets us like goodwill and maybe people ordering the paint, but then you have to balance that, right, with the cost of shipping a bunch of free paint overseas. So for right now, it's not something we're really set up to do very easily. And they don't make paint over there, so... Yeah, painting dog, it's usually often because if anything is yellow, brown, red, orange, etc., it's going to get turned probably into a purple to just because it's easy to shift in that direction. Yeah, sometimes when we're trying to do, I mean, a lot of our sample colors will be close to other colors. They just won't be exact matches. We're just really, if we make a mistake, we're really just trying to shift that paint towards something that's pretty or useful. And Sadie and I love purple, so that's why you guys are going to get a lot of purples and pinks. And pink. We like pink too. Plus there's not enough pink. Just adding little highlights back in. There you go. So this is both a demonic skin and a layering smooth skin tones lesson. But I think I lost a lot of my red. Nope, not at all, painting dog. It's just we're trying to, often the color that you end up getting looks nothing at all like the color we started out with. We're just trying to make it pretty so that people will like getting it as a sample. I'm going to do another glaze of Amadeus. This time I thinned it a little bit more. And I'm painting it in a very thin layer over the top. And I'm going to come back and wick off any excess before it dries. Once the glaze starts to dry, do not touch it. You will pull up parts of it and get horrible blotches. It's not fun. And get a little bit of that excess out of there. And we took it more red again. Alrighty, and yeah, I mean, the more you glaze, the more your initial layers are going to blend and blend and blend, and then, you know, if you rehighlight, it's all just futzing at that point, how far you want to go to make it look really, really good, and what your end goal is. If I decided that I wasn't getting enough red with Amadeus red, I could go for clear red, which has a higher pigment count and much more red pop. The clears are very good for glazing. So, let's get our little highlights up on the top of everything now. There we go. A little bit on the knee. Boop, boop, boop. There. Yay, and you see how the highlights make everything pop out a lot more. If I get a little far, I can always take my previous highlight color and kind of blend them in with a little bit of a glaze of that. A spot glaze is what that is called. If you just grab a little bit of a color, thin it down, and paint it over something. Just a little area. It's a spot glaze.
Yeah, John, that was an attempt to kind of grab a few new audience members. We seem to have the same kind of numbers every morning for the show. So I thought maybe putting us in a different category to kind of expose us to new eyes might be...
HM Road Dog. I'm going to stream this week. Actually, let's talk about that again, because I first mentioned it at the very start of the show. But we're pretty much done with Little Ms. Demon's parts right now, so I can talk about it again. Let's see here. Yeah, it's actually almost noon, so let's do that. Let me switch back to face cam, but there you guys go. I think that's a pretty awesome, like, succubi or tiefling skin tone right there. I think it looks pretty sharp actually, so might need to use it on something else. But yes, so okay, so let's now that you guys have gotten a good look at her, yeah, she's really cute. I love this model. Yes, and I did sculpt the bikini on there to make her stream legal. So there you go, Bikini Demon. So yeah, that's layering. Like technically, if I would have been doing every part of her, I probably could finish her skin in probably an hour and a half. I mean, just everything all over, because of course you're using all the same colors. You're doing the steps on every surface, you know, that kind of thing. So not too long actually for good results. Alrighty, let us go and talk about Anne's schedule for the coming weeks. Alrighty. Hey guys, we'll get my plug in my ear. Okay, so I am moving. I may be even moving a little faster than I thought because David really wants me out there with all the stuff that is going on. So I need to essentially move to my friend Katie's on the 1st of April. And then that gives me like 2 days to finish, pack, and clean the house. I will be packing up to that point. I did a lot of packing yesterday. So the point is to have the house mostly packed, move my stuff to Katie's that I'm going to carry over to the new place in California, and then just pack every remaining thing. The movers come on the 3rd to get my stuff. So it's I won't be able to stream after this week because I essentially am packing everything around my streaming setup. So we will do Monday, Tuesday, 2 shows on Wednesday, and 1 show on Thursday. This week. Tomorrow I'm going to do complementary colors, shading with complementary colors, because a lot of you asked how to do that after I did the seahorse. So we'll work on something and just show you how I shade with complementaries and how easy it is. It's so easy. And then after that on Wednesday is Dance of Death Day, like dragons all the time, all day, every day. So I will be working on that probably for the last 2 days. So hang out and chat. But after that, after this Thursday, that is my last streaming day for, I guess, 2 weeks. Because I will be on a hiatus, first packing everything, and then actually driving out to California and getting the movers, receiving the moving stuff. So I should resume on Monday the 13th. And until that point, we're just going to put on probably reruns of Anne, because I've been doing this for so long now, as Justin pointed out. We have actually an archive. So we'll probably show some of the early shows while I am indisposed. But yeah. Oh, geez, Valandar, that's terrible. But yeah, so have I killed the basil yet? No, the basil is sitting here. He's still alive. He definitely needs some scallops to go with him. Need to do my garlic, butter, lemon, basil scallops. Yum. Or shrimp, actually. I have some shrimp. I should do that.
Only if you share with the class.
Only if I share with the class. I make so little food for myself these days. But I don't know if I have that many shrimp, Justin. You're just out of luck. That's a Ron joke. Yeah, I totally, Coursera. It's totally a Ron joke. Ron jokes are like your dad jokes. Have you noticed this? Like, I don't want everybody to start calling Ron dad, but it's like jokes my dad tells, right? You're allergic? Yeah. Share the recipe with the class. It's actually with scallops. Scallops, okay, for those of you who like scallops, they're ridiculously easy to do. All you need is a non-stick pan of some sort, usually cast iron or like a ceramic non-stick, like a Le Creuset. I tried it in a regular non-stick pan. You still get okay results, but you can't really get it up to the high temperature you need to really sear your scallops. Unless you have a ceramic non-stick, then you probably could. But yeah, and they take like 2 minutes aside. If you're not at super high heat, they'll take 3 minutes aside. But if you are at high heat, they will take 2 minutes aside tops to cook the scallops. So super easy. So a little bit of oil in the pan, and then you finish them with, like, on the last 2 minutes, you can throw some garlic and maybe some white wine and some lemon zest or lemon juice, and maybe some chopped shallot, basil. Basil goes in at that. Actually, basil goes in when you take them off the heat, and butter goes in when you take them off the heat. So very easy.
There we go.
I am on a yoga ball. I'm just spinning because I have so much going on in my head right now. That's my Anne has too much energy right now planer, and I have too much to do. So I'm doing the rock. I would just fly out of my chair if I could. So yeah. So I am on a yoga ball. I do have a yoga ball, but it's over there. So one of the things I have to deflate and pack. So
All right,
yeah.
all
Any
right, Miss
other?
Ann.
What do we got? Do we have a raid?
Yes, we got a raid lined up.
Alrighty. Super awesome. Who are we raiding?
We're raiding someone by the name of Unicorn Owl. They're doing an acrylic painting of Lord of the Rings,
Oh,
so it
awesome.
looks really cool and interesting.
Awesome. I
Check it
like
out, Ann.
traditional. Yeah, I like traditional arts, so I am all about it. Yeah, and you can get some tips from looking at paintings in addition to miniatures as far as informing your own painting. So, yeah, no problem, Taz. I was happy to be here. I will be back tomorrow, where we will abuse one of our Reptus models and our Dragon Man and paint him all sorts of bright colors. Because why not? So, yeah. So, awesome, and have a great time, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.
Yep. Spread the Reaper love and tell people about minis. Why not, right? Because painting is great, but imagine if they were painting. Anyway, guys, thank you. The show today will be normal time, and we will see you then. Thanks, guys.